BTS News Today.it was supposed to be an ordinary day. No one expected that one sentence from Jungkook would shake Jimin's feelings to the point of making him freeze in place. Their world is usually filled with laughter, jokes, and warm togetherness. Suddenly, it turned into such a terrible silence. Many have said that the relationship between BTS members is like family. They know how to make each other laugh, support in difficult moments, and even share the pain that not everyone can understand. However, no one was prepared for what happened that day. More so, Jimin.it all started when the members of BTS, who are currently serving their mandatory military service, get the opportunity to meet in an internal event that is closed. That moment is rare because each of them is now occupied by heavy duties and responsibilities. The meeting took place in a relaxed atmosphere, away from the glitters of the camera or the gaze of thousands of pairs of eyes. Only they, in one small room, miss each other. A light flickered in the air, as usual. Jungkook sits on the edge of the couch, Jimin right next to him. She smiled like a little girl who had finally met her best friend. However, in the midst of the heat, Jungkook suddenly fell silent. His normally beaming face now looked more serious, even heavy. All eyes slowly turned to him, including Jimin, who involuntarily stopped his laughter and turned his head. There was something in Jungkook's gaze, something unusual. It's like a storm preparing to break out. None of them made a sound. Only the ticking of the clock sounded quietly, as if time was holding its breath. Then, in a heavy, yet firm voice, Jungkook said, "Hyung, I've been keeping it to myself for a long time, but I think it's time for me to be honest. I can't pretend anymore." Jimin looked at her, his eyes widened slightly, wondering what was going on. Meanwhile, RM and Suga look at each other. There was something unusual in Jungkook's tone. Jungkook looked directly at Jimin. She wanted to make sure that her beloved Hyung heard every word she would say. "I always thought you knew, but maybe I'm too cowardly to actually say it. During this time, I never stopped feeling like you're the one that means the most to me, more than it should be." The sentence fell like lightning in broad daylight. The room that had been full of laughter instantly froze. Jimin nodded. His smile disappeared in an instant, replaced by a surprised expression that was so obvious. As if the world around him stopped spinning, and the only thing there was Jungkook's voice that had just pierced his heart. What did Jimin just hear? "More than I should? What does Jungkook mean?" The eyes of all the members now moved to Jimin, waiting for his reaction. Jimin did not move, not even talking. He just stared at Jungkook. His eyes began to glaze over. His lips were slightly open as if he wanted to say something, but no sound came out. Jungkook, who was usually full of confidence, now looked fragile. His face turned red, and his hands trembled slightly. But he didn't take his eyes off Jimin. Not this time. For too long he held it all to himself. His feelings had grown over the years, through every laugh, every hug, every time they both laughed to tears. It was no ordinary friendship for him. It is much deeper, more complicated, and more valuable than anything he ever owned. Time seemed to slow down when Jimin finally moved his hand, grabbed her knees, trying to support himself, who suddenly felt very weak. He didn't know what to say. On the one hand, he felt valued, felt how deeply and sincerely Jungkook felt. But on the other hand, he's scared. Fear of ruining something that they have been building together for a long time. Fear of losing the only person who is always there for him, in joy or sorrow. Suga finally broke the silence. With a barely audible hoarse voice, I whisper, "Are you serious, Jungkook?" Jungkook nodded slowly, his eyes never letting go of Jimin. "I'm serious, Hyung," he replied. Nobody laughed. Nobody's kidding. This is not a joke. This is a pure feeling accumulated over the years. And now, finally, everything is removed. Jimin took a deep breath, trying to gather his ravaged thoughts. He felt a mixture of happiness, fear, relief, and confusion. But what dominates most is the feeling of being overwhelmed. How much trust Jungkook has given him to dare to express his feelings, even at the risk of losing everything. With a voice that almost trembled, Jimin finally opened his mouth. You know how much I appreciate you, right?" Jungkook nodded, holding his breath. "Me too. I feel the same way. But I'm scared," Jimin continued. The sentence was not pronounced with certainty, but enough to make the first tear fall out of the corner of Jungkook's eye. He lowered his head, smiling slightly even though tears clouded his vision. At least, his feelings were not one-sided. At least Jimin understood. That night, they talked more. It's no longer about laughter, jokes, or lighthearted stories. They talk about their fears, their hopes, and about how important it is to take care of each other. BTS is not just a group for them. This is a family, a home, the only place where they can be themselves without fear of being judged. The news of the emotional encounter never really leaked to the public in detail. It was only a small rumor in ARMY circles that smelled something different after the meeting. Jungkook and Jimin looked closer, more attentive to each other, even compared to before. There was a new kind of maturity in the way they looked at each other. It was as if they were now sharing a big secret that only the two of them knew. Time passed, but the moment remained alive in their memory. Not all feelings translate into a romantic relationship. Sometimes, the purest love is the one that doesn't need labels. A love that just wants to see the person we love happy, whatever it may be. Jungkook took a big risk that day. But in the end, he did not regret it. He knows, though the world outside may never understand, there is one person who now holds the truth to his heart's content, and that is more than enough. Jimin, on the other hand, learned one important thing that day, that there is someone who loves him in such a pure and sincere way. And no matter what happens ahead, he knows he will never be alone, not as long as Jungkook is around. And for the ARMY who love them unconditionally, this story is yet another proof that BTS is more than just idols. They are human beings with hearts that dare to love, feel, and share with each other, without fear, without shame, and without reservation. That moment, though it occurred only in the silence of a small room, become one of the most important parts of their journey. A story of courage, honesty, and love in its purest form. That night, after Jungkook's big confession, the world has changed for Jim. His heart was in great turmoil. He tried to cover up the nervousness that was burning in his chest, yet anyone who watched him closely would know that Jimin was battling with his own emotions. Jungkook, who is usually able to read Jimin without even a word, now just sit quietly, as if to leave everything to time and Jimin's decision. The room remained quiet, but no longer tense. Something was changing in the air, a warmth born of honesty. RM finally stood up from his seat and decided to get out for a moment, followed by Suga, Jin, V, and J-Hope. They all knew there was something to be resolved only between Jimin and Jungkook. They give space that is so necessary, two hearts that are now standing on a new boundary that they have never stepped on before. As soon as the door closes and only the two of them are left, Jimin took a deep breath. He still looked down, playing with his little trembling fingers. Jungkook, though scared, remained patiently waiting. He dared not force anything. Enough with the fact that he was telling the truth. It was enough to see that Jimin did not immediately go away. I don't know what to say, Jimin muttered finally, his voice hoarse. He looked up slowly. His eyes met with Jungkook's sincere gaze. Jungkook smiled faintly, a smile full of hurt, but also full of hope. It's all right, Hyung. You don't have to answer now. I just want you to know. I've had enough of that. Jimin shook his head quickly, as if to disagree. No, Jungkook. Me. I'm feeling something. I've been feeling that too. But I'm scared. I'm afraid if we change, if everything gets weird, if we lose each other.
Don't give up on your future. We all start losers. We're all